up your engine! Check out this 2005 S2000. Unique sports car. They don't make them anymore, which is really sad, but here's one. They're appreciated in value, and I'll show you why. One of the best roadsters ever made, maybe even the best. It's a Honda convertible roadster, so it's dependable. It starts all the time. It has freezing cold air conditioning. You don't see that for very long in most sports cars. This thing's 16 years old, everything still works perfectly fine. Typical with a Honda. But what do we have with a Honda that's not typical? This is rear-wheel drive. It is a classic two-seat rear-wheel drive sports car. Hard to find that in a Honda. Even the Civic R's, they're front-wheel drive. They say they're going to be making a rear-wheel drive one, but for a purist, you want rear-wheel drive. Now these S2000s have a lot going for them, but mainly it's the power and the handling. People who don't know cars will look at this and say, well, what's the difference between this and a Mazda Miata? Well, in 2005, this thing cost about $8,000 more. But you got a lot more for it. This baby's got around 240 horsepower. Well, the Mazda Miata has 147 horsepower. And even if you bought the turbo version, that only had 174 horsepower. You can't compare the driving experience of the two cars at all. And all that horsepower is connected to what? A 6-speed standard transmission. That's all they used in these cars. Now I always tell my own customers, if they're gonna go cheap and buy a Mazda Miata, I tell them, make sure you get the standard transmission. They're a lot more fun to drive because they're dogs with automatics. Well, these don't even come with automatics. So right there, they've lost a lot of the market, considering that 95% of Americans now drive automatic transmissions. This is a driver's car. It's got a serious engine. This is a Honda double overhead cam VTEC. It was the first real serious VTEC that put out a lot of horsepower, but is still extremely reliable. It doesn't use modern tricks like GDI injection, turbocharger, or supercharger. The engines hold up a lot longer. You throw, like some of my customers have, a supercharger kit on a Mazda Miata, after a while, the engine's gonna blow. It wasn't made to take that kind of horsepower. This doesn't have one. I mean, if you want to go insane enough, go ahead and throw one on here. Get 300-something horsepower. But it's a light car with a lot of horsepower anyway. And if you want it to last a long time, you best to leave it stock. And there's another reason to leave it stock. Take this 2005. They only sold 7,000 of them in the United States. They become rarer and rarer. Since they're such great cars, their price is going up and up. If you want to get a used one, you better hurry up before they start to get astronomical and you'll be paying a ton. With this setup, they're very reliable. As long as you change the oil every 5,000 miles, they can last a really long time. Parts are still available for them. They're starting to really rise in value. So if you think about getting one, you better hurry up and make up your mind. Compare that to Mazda Miata. It's the only two-seat roadsters ever to sell more than 1 million units. They made tons of them, so you can get them dirt cheap. You're not gonna get one of these dirt cheap anymore. That's not gonna happen. You could a decade ago, but not today. Bigger deal of a car. I mean, if you're the type of guy that just wants a cute little sports car or a gal, go ahead and get a Miata, get it dirt cheap, drive it around, have fun. But if you're a serious driver and you want an investment, get a good one of these and, hey, I can just about guarantee you they're gonna go up in value as time passes. Now, if you want to modify things, feel free. This has a nice solid aluminum radiator. That's actually a better upgrade anyway. And it also has an upgraded exhaust system. And did you notice something? No backfiring. Even that BMW I had when I revved it up, it backfired too. This is Honda, top-notch engineering these things. People that are into serious driving machines. This is the kind of car that you want. Now this thing's got like 140,000 miles on it. It still sounds like that. These were built to last. You might think, tiny little engine? Well, yeah, that tiny little engine puts out 240 horsepower and it holds up. That's where the VTEC really came in. This was the first big VTEC that Honda put out in a real horsepower engine. And they hold up over time. You heard it. It's got no problems. And look at the style. I mean, this thing never goes out of style. You can say, oh, it looks like a Miata. Well, it's a two-seat Sportster, but it doesn't drive like a Miata. Just look at the dash. What do you see? Big old tachometer. It's a serious driver's car. Nice 6-speed transmission. A simple parking brake that works and won't break. Not that modern electronic crap. And it's a Honda, so freezing cold air conditioning. Let me tell you, this is a two-seater. You got air conditioning that cold, you're gonna end up turning it down. Or, like I do in these things, drive it with the top down. And you still got the cold air blowing in your face. It gets hot here in Houston. You see a lot of guys drive around with the top down, but the air conditioning coming out full blast. And of course, this was one of the first cars to have the cool racing start button. And as you can hear when you close the door, this is not a flimsy car. It is a very solid built car. It has to be to handle the horsepower that it has. And yes, it has a trunk, you know. It's a small trunk, there's no arguing that, but it's a two-seater. They got room for jack stands, and as you can see on the front, he's got drilled racing rotors on it. You know, they didn't come that way, but he wants a little bit more performance, so. I know people are gonna say, Scotty, if it's such a great car, why'd they stop making them? Well, when they stopped making them, the giant recession came. They didn't sell that many of them, and they were talking about bringing them back, but the recession was, put an end to that. Let's face it, you make excellent motorcycles for speed. You put a bunch of this technology in their cars, but most of their money's made on conventional cars. Sports cars, like I said before, the Mazda Miata is the only two-seat roadster that ever sold more than 1 million total. These were great cars, but they weren't making enough money selling them, especially being a two-seater. All two-door cars. Look at Honda. They phased out their two-door Civic now. They're only going to be making 4 doors. Going towards SUVs, vans, and cars are kind of fading away. This was a great car. They stopped making them more for financial reasons than anything else. Starts right up because it's a Honda. You're going to feel the bumps. It's a sports car. And let's try a little acceleration here. The first gear pull will come to a stop and take off. Now for quite some time, this little 4-cylinder engine held the record for most horsepower per liter until a Ferrari took over. But let me tell you something else. You buy yourself a used Ferrari, you better have a few dollar bills lying around to pay for the repairs. This thing, you can work on it yourself, like the owner of this car does. It's a Honda. Look at the working space. You want to adjust the valves? Easy to take the top off. Now it is a Honda, so you don't generally have to work on them all that much, but when you do, there's all kinds of room. Now if you're not a serious driver, you'll probably be happy with a Mazda Miata. It'll drive all day long. It generally won't break down. Kind of a dog with an automatic, but with the standard, it's kind of fun to drive around. But serious driving, as you see, these things can take it. They can hold up. They're Honda engines. Honda's the #1 manufacturer of engines in the world. They know what they're doing when they're making an engine, and this was one of their high-tech priorities back in the day that still holds up. But if you're looking to buy one of these things, you better hurry up, because they're starting to appreciate and value like mad. There were only so many of them sold. They don't make them anymore. They're all standard transmissions. You want to have fun for still a relatively cheap price, you better hurry up before they start getting as pricey as '67 Mustangs. So if you're the type of person that wants a fast, sporty, beautifully handling car, you might check out one of these S2000s before it's too late and they're getting $50,000, $60,000 a piece for them. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.